the Lakers better take note. Devin Booker is ready to give these cats the business. He's trying to make a name for himself, and this is clearly the opportunity for him to do it.
No, 100%. Obviously, I think what we're looking at here is the Eastern Conference elite is the disparity between the elite and the middle of the pack, if you will, is extremely vast. And I think in the West, it's definitely not that. The top of the West is not that much better than the bottom of the West, as you're seeing in the Eastern Conference, even with you see like a team like Memphis going into Utah without Donovan Mitchell and stealing kind of game one on the road. Same thing with Denver stealing game one on the road. They got trounced in game two against the Nuggets. But, there's going to be that back and forth. But Brooklyn has looked dominant, especially if you take the second half of that first game. And then all of this last game we saw here and what Milwaukee did to Miami last night was proof positive of where they feel with things too. And so right now, as we focus our attention to what the Lakers and Phoenix Suns are going to be doing, what does Phoenix now come out with? How do they combat a motivated Lakers team, and more importantly, a motivated Anthony Davis who said, hey, it's on me. I've got to play better, so forth and so forth. Looking at the box score from the last game, it's kind of ironic because like Phoenix, the feel of that game was that they had it mostly in control. There was a little bit of doubt when CP went out, but the stats really lend towards, the Lakers weren't that much out of it. They shot 17, they only 17 of 28 from the free throw line, the Lakers were. I think they shot more free throws, I think maybe 10 plus more free throws than Phoenix did. The Lakers were terrible from three. Phoenix wasn't all that great from three. The turnovers were even. But the biggest disparity was second chance points with Phoenix. Were they able to get 21 off the 16 offensive rebounds? And DeAndre Ayton's first playoff performance. What do you expect out of Ayton going into game two, and his ability not only to kind of be that double-double threat, but with the defense he did, he really locked up Anthony Davis. Do you see him being able to do that without the help that usually is needed when you're guarding a guy like AD?
Well, I think that's the key of what you just mentioned is the defense of Ayton. I know people want to get caught up in the numbers, right? And the analytics. I'm just giving it specifically via the eye test. Okay. DeAndre Ayton took it upon himself to man up and guard against arguably one of the best players in basketball when healthy, right? Top 5 player in Anthony Davis. He's not being asked to guard LeBron. He's not being asked, to be like this dominant force in the paint. He's being asked to minimize and mitigate the threat of having both Anthony Davis and LeBron James having an impact on this game. If you take out one of those two components, the Los Angeles Lakers are not nearly as much the threat as I think a lot of people want to give credit to about the opportunity and the potential for them to continue to basically repeat as the champions. And so I know it's a tall order. I know it's a tough task. But I think if you simplify what you're asking Ayton to give you, right, I think it's manageable, right? He doesn't have to be Draymond Green-like, but he does need to be a presence. And part of that presence isn't about against the whole team, against the Los Angeles Lakers. It's really just against one guy. Stay in front of him, contest shots, make him work for it. And we've seen this from time to time. Everyone's making it sound like, Anthony Davis had his coming out party. He's always been a dominant player, but he has had his moments in the playoffs where he has been nullified. And I'll say it's been in crucial moments, right? Like it's been, series changing performances where you have to start wondering whether or not Anthony Davis will get it done. Well, now that he's paired up next to LeBron James, yes, we can safely say he can elevate himself to arguably be the best player in the game of basketball when healthy. But we're talking about a Phoenix Suns team that have good, solid players at each and every single position. Where the Phoenix Suns get themselves in trouble is when those guys are not playing their position to the best of their ability. And here's an opportunity where Ayton can just basically keep the game simple and do what is necessary in order to keep Anthony Davis playing at a mediocre level in this second game. If he can do that, again, the Phoenix Suns have the edge and possibly can wind up being 2-0 in this series.
So would you say in all of that, as CP throws a lob to Ayton, those Lakers actually tip it and get the steal, would you say for Ayton it's more important for him to be I don't want to say a lockdown, but definitely a plus defender, as opposed to being able to get maybe his own offense going on the other side for Phoenix. So if he gives you 8 and 10 or 8 and 12, but he's playing great defense on Davis, is that more valuable than if he were to give you like 20 and 10 or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, 20 and 10 is awesome. But if Anthony Davis gives you 20 and 10 or 25 and 10, I think it has more of an impact because of the fact that the Lakers now are positioning themselves where everyone is going to have an opportunity to have an impact, right? Because you know LeBron James is going to get his. There are times where, however, Anthony Davis has to work considerably hard. If you're asking me that 20 and 10 from Ayton is just based off of a couple of shots, but a lot of it is off of defensive rebound, offensive rebounds.
Right.
Who's winning battles that Anthony Davis, normally would be winning. So the numbers can be very skewed. You know what I'm saying? The numbers can be very skewed. But I'm just looking at efficiency and effectiveness in what he's making Anthony Davis do in comparison to what he's asking himself to do.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Right. So we have an early stoppage here at 11:02 mark. Anthony Davis, who is often guarded by Jay Crowder in game one, and starts out with the Crowder on him now, tries to take a jump shot and inadvertently gives Crowder a boot to the sack. And Crowder here is I don't know. I didn't get kicked, so I don't want to say anything. Looked like Crowder's trying to play it up a little bit here. Referees are reviewing.
I mean, play it up or not. First of all, what does Anthony Davis need to be kicking his feet out for?
I don't think that's his natural shooting motion.
Yeah, okay. I'm just saying. You remember when Draymond Green did that? You remember when Draymond?
I do.
You remember Draymond? Well, not Draymond Green did that like it was one time. Remember when Draymond Green was doing that?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, no man wants to remember another man's, gonads, getting what they call Hong Kong food. Okay. But
yeah, Davis is trying to shake it off here a little bit, like, it wasn't that big of a deal. But like I said, hey, it wasn't him on the other side of it. I think Crowder might have been playing it up just a tad. We'll see if they're able to assess a flagrant on AD here. And so Phoenix Suns are able to get some free throws and kind of put Davis into some trouble here with some early foul situation.
LeBron James has started a trend. Okay.
Oh, there you go. Flagrant one.
I will not be surprised if award-winning performances, acting performances, are now filtered into NBA basketball games. All right. Kobe's already gotten his. But his is legitimate because it was actually for an actual film. We're talking about reality, real life TV. You can't get better performances than what we get from LeBron James and those alike who like to flop and like to kind of accentuate the fouls a little bit. There's nothing. And listen, the best, what do you call the best thespian moments are the ones of drama and anguish, the pain and disdain. To capture those moments, they're like award-winning performances, bro. You just can't. You can't match that.
Yeah, I mean, well, the best actors in sports are definitely NBA players and soccer players. I think hands down. Maybe I don't follow enough of the other sports well enough to know who are the best actors. I know if you're like a gymnast, you have to give a performance that's kind of theatrical, but it's not fake. You know what I mean? So this is really interesting. I'm trying to figure out what's taking so long here. Yes.
You're asking me?
I'm trying to watch the streams. They're taking an enormous amount of time to kind of make a call here. So it looks like they are going to rule a flagrant one here. Finally, get the show back on the road here. It was like a 4 or 5 minute delay just to make this call. I don't understand but either it was or it wasn't. I don't know what the big issue was. He got kicked in the nuts. All right, so let's flagrant foul. Let's keep it pushing. Shoot these free throws and get the game going.
But I will say, Shaw, just as they are trying to implement rules to, mitigate guys from taking 3-point shots and not having any landing space. Excuse me. I think the same thing has to be applied about, when guys take jump shots, You know what I'm saying? Make sure, men's valleys are protected properly.
It's rough on these NBA streets, man.
I tell you, boy. I mean, he just got Bugsy Siegel, and we got to make sure that we do our due diligence to protect, the rights of all basketball players.
Well, Davis misses a second. It's a big call though here because it looked like that was actually Crowder's second foul as we were having our discussion. I actually missed Crowder's first foul. So Crowder with 2 early fouls, which is probably great for Anthony Davis in some ways, where he shouldn't be allowing Jay Crowder to guard him at all. Like that shouldn't even be something the Phoenix Suns should be able to get away with. Like Crowder's cool and all, but let's keep it a buck here. So Crowder's going to the line here to hopefully give Phoenix a lead, I think, for their part, and makes the first 1-1 with 11:02 left in the first quarter. This game is off to a very, very interesting, unique start, unfortunately. For us as listeners and fans as well too. So what are some other keys? Let's actually talk about Phoenix a little bit more in line with Chris Paul. So one of the things that I would definitely wanted to notate here tonight, we've talked about it on the baseline a couple of times. Not Chris Paul, Devin Booker's early reps, in the Phoenix Suns franchise, where he was unceremoniously made to play some point guard. How that's going to help him if Chris Paul is not able to really distribute and dribble the ball up like we saw he was struggling in Game 1. If Chris Paul is not right, do you think the Lakers can really utilize that to their advantage and actually maybe take Booker out of the game some if he's having to do some more primary playmaking on that side of the basketball?
I mean, there's potential for that to happen, but I got to tell you, as I was watching, that game between, Game 1, I don't know if I was utterly impressed with the Lakers' backcourt play. And I'm not saying that to say that there's not, that they have no chance. I think there's definitely room for improvement, but I even come to this conclusion that if Chris Paul is not even 100%, if he's only like 30, 40%, I think it's still good enough where you don't necessarily have to rely on him to have to be like a primary scorer. If what we're getting from Devin Booker is going to be tried and true, because again, that was his first game. I'm sure that he's going to probably, catch a sophomore jinx, so to speak, in some course in the series where, he'll get nullified or whatever. And I'm sure that's probably going to be the game plan of Frank Vogel. It almost seems too certain. Hey, don't let Devin Booker score the basketball. Maybe force Chris Paul to do it. But I'm not so much as worried about the Lakers trying to force Chris Paul to score as much as Chris Paul's ability to do what he was doing effectively without having to score the basketball, which is to penetrate, get into paint, and get open looks for the younger guys to get shots off. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of that is him breaking down the Lakers defense. I mean, even though the score was only 99-90, Shaw, the Lakers defense really wasn't that impressive. And while all the focus is on what Anthony Davis didn't give you, and the fact that they're two big guys didn't have the greatest of performances and they'll bounce back. And my concern is whether or not the Lakers backcourt is going to be able to hang with that of the Phoenix Suns backcourt. And between Schroeder, Caldwell Pope, Alex Caruso, Kyle Kuzma, they're going to have to step it up, because the Phoenix Suns backcourt to me can have a field day against the Los Angeles Lakers backcourt. I'm just telling you, given what I'm seeing, and a lot of it is missed shots, missed opportunities. You can't go into that second game just thinking if the Phoenix Suns get those same looks that they don't go in the same way. So I'm a little sketchy about whether or not the Los Angeles Lakers backcourt has the ability to hang with the Phoenix Suns if they're going to get that kind of penetration from Chris Paul and Devin Booker and the rest of that backcourt.
Well, I mean, I think that's an interesting take. I think early on we saw a couple
and let's
plays
not even forget Cameron Payne didn't even play in that game, basically, right?
Well, he got ejected.
Right. So
yeah. I think the one thing though is Chris Paul, like, he's clearly not right. So even on this last drive, he lost the ball dribbling right, which is his affected shoulder. Was able to draw the foul on Drummond, made one of 2 free throws. So he really is out there for stability as opposed to productivity. I think at this stage, right, with the days are off that he got the rest and got the treatment in, he's still not going to be right, and don't know if and when he'll be right during the rest of the series. The Lakers backcourt, as you alluded to, they may just kind of sell out in understanding and who they are. So if when Schroeder's out there, obviously Schroeder will try to create a little bit and score some as well. But when you have Caruso and KCP out there, their primary job is to defend and run to the corner and hit a 3 or 2. Caruso, yeah, he'll dunk on you if you let him. He'll make some nice cuts. But they may sell out completely to try to defend and almost do exactly what you're talking about. Shut down the Phoenix backcourt, especially if CP cannot be CP. And if you're going to, quote unquote, force him right now to his bad shoulder, what does that look like for the rest of this Phoenix offense? And would Booker or Payne or others like that be ready to kind of initiate some offense in the eventuality that can happen? So the one thing I will say here early on, though, is Anthony Davis is getting into it. He's mixing it up. He's involved in some of these plays. He drew a foul on Ayton on the last time down here too, and he does look like he's going to be a little bit more aggressive to start this game as well he needs to be. Really slow start to this one though. 8:56 left to go, 6-6. A lot of fouls being called, a lot of physicality. Just is this the way you see this game going? And while Phoenix, we know them from the old days to kind of be this high-scoring, efficient team. They won the game 99-90 last time. What pace do you think this game needs to be played at for either team for them to really kind of come out?
Well, the Phoenix Suns need to get need to pick up the pace. And I mean, look, the Lakers are, I guess, wanting to play bully ball. I get, it's interesting. They did this last year when they played against the Denver Nuggets, right? The Denver Nuggets came and punched them in the mouth, and then the Los Angeles Lakers decided to play bully ball with them, be more physical, be even more aggressive, and actually force the refs to have to make those calls. And you saw plenty of opportunities where those calls should have been and could have been made, and they weren't, which gave you an idea of who is basically setting the setting the tone, for how the rest of that series was going to go and where the calls were going to be, where the calls will land. In this situation here, it may not mean anything if the Los Angeles Lakers are just going to sit here and get all physical, but not really make anything of it, right? Because if you really think about it, the Phoenix Suns actually have a couple of guys out there. There's some rough riders as well, too, that can dish out the same kind of physical punishment. Chris Paul, even injured, is probably more of a bulldog when he's injured than he is when he's healthy. You know what I'm saying? So,
oh my God.
I mean, this really could be an absolutely ugly basketball game, which could favor the Phoenix Suns, right? Like if this is a statement game, if this is a statement game for the Los Angeles Lakers to come out and really prove, do you want the Phoenix Suns hanging around by the third or fourth quarter because you're so focused on trying to bully the Phoenix Suns that you're missing out on taking care of your own business and getting shots the way you're supposed to?
I mean, it's a point to make for sure. But early on, you're seeing the Lakers. The Schroeder, he just fell down. So they are definitely hunting calls and trying to get the Phoenix Suns into foul trouble here a little bit. Another post feed here into Drummond, actually loses the ball. Drummond, though, a quick 5 rebounds, 2 tip-ins as well too. So helping his cause for while he's out there. Out there is really upset at the minutes that Drummond is getting and feel like he's not valuable to them in any way, shape, or form. Where a guy like Gasol or Anthony Davis just needs to be playing 5 kind of full time. Phoenix is really sloppy with the ball here right now. I'm sorry. Like, this is very distracting. Another start has been awful since coming into the game. 10-10 Lakers, 7:08 left here in the first quarter. But let's talk a little bit about that Lakers front court. We don't necessarily have to have a conversation. We know they're better with AD at the 5. That's a done deal. That's fine. But do you feel like Drummond has absolutely no value in this series? Should they be looking at Gasol, or is just AD at the 5 the only?
Well, I think that's a mistake on the Lakers' part, right? There should be value with Andre Drummond being on this team. And I think part of that is because the emphasis is too much on LeBron James and Anthony Davis, okay? And rightfully so. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be the case. But I think Andre Drummond has a great opportunity to shine. You know what I'm saying? Like Dario Saric is on him. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't see where Ayton is going to have to be sticking Drummond a lot unless Davis comes off the court and they leave Drummond on there and you leave Ayton on the court. Then you'll probably see Ayton on Drummond. But part of that is going to be is Drummond commanding respect in the paint? Is he dominating? Is he getting, you know what I'm saying, post shots? Is he establishing himself in the post and getting shots? Are they opening up space for him to get those shots in the post? You know, it'll be interesting to see if, especially when LeBron James is carrying the basketball up and down the court, if he sees that there is that matchup opportunity for Drummond to take advantage of. There's nobody on the Phoenix Suns that can physically match up with Drummond. However, Drummond does not do a good job at times of placing himself in the best position to catch and a ball in the post and go and attack on whoever it is that's guarding him. And I think that's part of the reason why I think there's less confidence in Vogel leaving him out there for extended number of minutes, because you're obviously going to have to make a choice. Do you want LeBron James, handling the ball spread out with his shooters, or do you want to figure out a way to establish a half-court game with Drummond, him, and Davis? And it's an interesting balancing act for a guy like Frank Vogel, because you are dealing with a very unusual basketball team in the Phoenix Suns. They have versatility. They're not there yet as it pertains to defense, but they've got enough versatility in their players that they can afford to challenge what the Los Angeles Lakers are going to put out there on the basketball court. And it's a question of how much confidence do you have in the guys that you put out there that are going to go out there and get you those baskets, get you those good minutes before Vogel has to start playing frantic and start putting things where he's more comfortable. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, I want to see how Monty Williams shakes things up to force Vogel to coach outside of what he's used to have given himself the luxury of doing over the last year and a half so far.
All right. Well, I'll rebut that here in a quick second. You know, with Vogel, we saw him make adjustments here, but we're going to take a quick break as they're also on timeout here as we go 12-10. Phoenix with 5 turnovers already in the first quarter. So, not bad at only down 2, but they look a little bit rattled, and AD's already out here yelling and screaming. So I guess the Lakers are back here in the first half of the first quarter. But let's take a quick break, and I'll answer that kind of Vogel and the adjustments thing when we come back. Chris Haynes already talking about Anthony Davis, and he was mad, and all the practice he put in, so forth and so forth. All right, I'm kind of off of that. Chris Paul goes to the right hand. I think he's trying to bait the Lakers into thinking that he's okay. He's gone right pretty much on every drive, so going to that bad shoulder, if you will. Pulled up, missed a jumper here, unfortunately for them, but I think he's trying to show that his right hand is fine, so they don't, in essence, kind of pick on him a little bit. The one thing I wanted to go back to, we were talking about before the break, was Vogel and his adjustments, and I think he definitely showed the propensity to do that in the bubble. Has been able to do that even once they got Andre Drummond this year, and unceremoniously kind of benching Marc Gasol. So he's willing to play who's in front of him. And I don't think he necessarily cares so much about the names, but because Drummond is still a bigger name right now, or is perceived to have more value than Gasol, he's not able to get any minutes thus far. As Drummond grabs another rebound here, 16-12 Lakers, 5:05 left to play in the first. Do you think, and I know you touched on it slightly, but is there a space, not so from the Phoenix standpoint, but is there a space for, they don't even need him. Like they should be fine with just kind of going and running AD out there, without really worrying about trying to play the depth and holistic approach to their roster, because they're going to give Drummond minutes. It seems like that's an obvious thing. But will Gasol touch the floor at all in this series, do you think?
Well, listen, I said that the Lakers getting Drummond I thought was a good thing, and part of it is because I totally forgot that Marc Gasol was even on that roster. I'm sorry, just Marc Gasol, while it sounded like a decent signing, Marc Gasol to me has just been so non-relevant for the Lakers, which kind of gives you an idea of like how much his value is not impactful, right? For a very good Lakers team, maybe we just gave the Lakers too much credit in the sense that, yeah, as long as you got Anthony Davis and LeBron James, you're good. But that clearly isn't the case. This is one of these matchups, Shaw, where Vogel can afford to sit Gasol. I mean,
sure.
Obviously, you know what I'm saying? Like, if maybe Gasol was like somebody who was still can shoot a decent three ball, who is a great passer, but based on the way that the Lakers are playing offensively, based on the style of play that they're going to have to play against the Phoenix Suns, I can't see where Gasol's skill set is going to be really of any value. And it may be in their best interest to probably have him sit this out and see where the chips lie going into the next series if they get past the Phoenix Suns. Okay, so, but again, this is part and parcel of where you're asking, the bigger question about will Frank Vogel make these kind of adjustments? Where will he make the call? If he has to bring in Marc Gasol, it won't be out of a sense of desperation. Excuse me. I think it's going to be out of a sense of, I need something different, right? Because maybe they've got something figured out where Andre Drummond is just he's not effective in this series. But I think you can clearly see in this game already, Drummond can have an impact on this series, right? He has an impact on this game already. It could be an ugly basketball game, which at the end of the day, you can live with LeBron and Anthony Davis and still not, playing up to the level that, people are accustomed or think that they're expecting to play up to. And your X factor could be a dominating performance by Andre Drummond because the Phoenix Suns really have no answer for him. And they're going to have to figure out, like, how long can they afford to allow Drummond to go buck wild on them and just utterly dominate, their front court, right? Now you're going to probably have to make changes because of it. So to me, I think Marc Gasol is good where he's at. Keep pep talking those guys. Give them that championship medal, talk for the guys that don't know how to win it, how to get there, even though it's only a few players. And just be a good rah-rah guy for them, because I don't see where he's going to have an impact in this series.
Well said. Yeah, and I think, the Lakers, what they believe is really it's all about matching the effort of Phoenix, and just being kind of better within the unit that Vogel is ready to kind of run out their normal rotation. If you're having to look down towards the end of that bench, you know what I mean, and bring in Gasol for whatever reason, or even Wesley Matthews in this series. I think Wesley Matthews was a emergency play in the play-in game for Golden State. And he came in there, gave them some pretty good minutes. But just understanding what Vogel wants to do with his team, is something that I think the Lakers they want to just control their own effort, and I think they can do that with their kind of like their front 5 to 7 guys. They're going to be they think they'll be just fine in this. Switching things over to the Phoenix side. Listen, in this game here, I really don't like. I mentioned it a little bit earlier. Not feeling Sarge's energy at all, and I know he played relatively well in that first game, and has been a pretty good pick for them. A good player for them throughout the course of the season. Remember, we had Gerald Bujoe on our show earlier in the season, and he just said, yeah, Saric has been just, a godsend, and has just really accepted his role, especially with the rotations kind of switching out with the addition of Crowder and stuff like that this year. But this game has looked completely just out of sorts. And as they've taken him out here, as we kind of get towards the last part of the first quarter here, 3:38 left to go, is there – what are your thoughts on Sarge and kind of what he did the first game and what he can bring to this series? But if he's, he's a guy who can pass the ball, but if he's, out there looking a little bit shaky and, as the ghost speaks, Gasol is actually in the game. So forget everything we just mentioned. The ghost lives. Gasol has checked in. I didn't even notice him out there, as I was making the commentary. But yeah, going back to Sarge, just kind of like, what do you think his impact can be offensively and defensively for Phoenix?
I mean, yes, game 1 he was -7 in plus minus. So I don't know if you take that as you will. I see that as all right. Even Monty Williams realizes that he's probably going to have to use him sparingly, and this may actually have to be kind of like front court by committee, with the exception of DeAndre Ayton. I don't know whether or not DeAndre Ayton is capable of holding his own against Anthony Davis for a whole series. I mean, that's asking way too much. But I think part of that key is, can the combination of Saric and Kaminsky do something as it pertains to holding their own against whichever big man is sitting at the 5 for the Los Angeles Lakers?
Yeah.
And so, listen, Saric only played 11 and a half minutes basically in game 1. That's just not going to cut it, man. Like, he's going to have to figure out a way to be on that floor a little bit longer. Because if you ask me who of the 2 better players actually needs to be out there to enable the Suns to keep doing what they're doing, between him and Kaminsky, it's going to have to be Saric. But if you're just going to basically get a dude who's going to play about 11 and a half minutes, only put up about 4 shots, you know what I'm saying? That's not going to hold. And the Suns are going to have to score the basketball. I get that, this may be a defensive-minded type of basketball game, and we saw them play good defense. That is not what's going to help them win this series. Eventually, they're going to have to play to their strength, and they were a better offensive basketball team than the Los Angeles Lakers. So if that's the case, they're going to have to draw to their bread and butter at some point, because at some point their defense will fail them. It certainly will fail them if most of their players not 100%. Chris Paul's not 100%. That compromises your backcourt. That actually gives some of an advantage to the Los Angeles Lakers from an offensive perspective. And if the Lakers have any chance of winning while you're relying on LeBron James and Anthony Davis, they're going to need some kind of contributions from their backcourt, whether it's Kyle Kuzma, whether it's Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, whether it's Schroeder, whether it's Caruso. One of those guys are going to have to step up and be that third wheel for them to get past the Phoenix Suns. But if the Phoenix Suns think that they're going to have any chance, they're going to have to get better contributions from their front court role players in Saric and Kaminsky, and Johnson. Crowder has to step up. He was plus 14. So, as long as he doesn't put himself in foul trouble, he could definitely be a key player to this. But he can't mask the inefficiency and ineffectiveness that they're not going to be able to get if Saric can't stay on the court. He's got to be on the court for more than 11 and a half minutes. I'm sorry. He just has to be.
I don't disagree. Phoenix looked a little bit shook here. 7 turnovers here in the first quarter. TNT just flashed a stat that the Lakers have 12 points off those 7 turnovers already. 26-18, 1:30 left to go here in the first quarter. Very long first quarter, with all the fouls and stoppages and stuff like that as well too.
Until midnight, bro. They're trying to keep it until midnight.
Yeah, it's wild. LeBron kicks out to the wing. Oh, nice play by Cameron. Sticks it, but KCP gets it back to the corner to Caruso. Caruso misses a corner 3. Caruso chases down the offensive rebound after the KCP tip out. Lakers just showing a lot more hustle and, as you would expect, some championship grit here. LeBron hits a 3, and looks like there's a foul down low. Looks like the basket will probably count, but it might be offensive foul on the Lakers here as well too. But LeBron hitting that 3 from roughly not quite as deep as he did in the play-in game, but from this roughly the same spot, if you will. Lakers look extremely more focused, in this first game, while Phoenix is looking and then a little bit shook here. 29-18, 103 left to go. What would, if you're Monty Williams, as we close out this quarter, what do you say to this Phoenix team, as the Lakers look like they're out for blood here in game 2?
Wake the F up.
That simple.
Yeah, I mean, they clearly are still sipping on the Corbell from game 1. A good basketball team recognizes they don't want to get swept by the champs. So you're happy at least you won 1 game. But you are the number 2 seeded team in the Western Conference. And nobody believes that you deserve to be the number 2 seeded team because you're playing against the reigning defending champions, right? So you got to come in here thinking we need to be up by 2 games, because everyone who thinks that the Lakers are in trouble don't believe that. They're like, hey, the Lakers could be down 0-2, and they're still going to think that the Lakers are still good enough to win this series. Oh, they're still going to win it in 6. Means they're going to run 4 straight against the Phoenix Suns. You're the Phoenix Suns. You have to treat that first game as a fluke and say there's still a whole lot more that we need to prove to this team so that they understand that they need to beat us rather than we beating them. You know what I'm saying? So Monty Williams has got to get up in their ass and got to be like, listen, man, you obviously see what championship teams do. They step it up a level. They put the elbow into your neck, and they force all of the other things that you normally would argue, fuss, and fight and be like, you shrug your shoulders over it, we'll worry about it next game. You can't worry about that. It's got to be within the context of the game. It has to be in that game. You have to be physical. You have to match their physicality. You have to match their hustle. If the Phoenix Suns don't choose to do that, then, hey, the Los Angeles Lakers have essentially eviscerated any hope of the belief that the Phoenix Suns should beat the Lakers or could beat the Lakers in this 7-game series.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, as you allude to it, it does come down to a certain level of confidence, and that's where you want a guy like Chris Paul to kind of buoy your team. Even a Jay Crowder who went to the finals with the Miami Heat against this Lakers team, you have to be able to impart your veteran wisdom, as I think you touched on a little bit earlier, along with Monty Williams and being his backup and being that second voice to him. And just saying, all right, guys, we really got to settle down here, got to take our time and just run our offense correctly. The Lakers are obviously a great defensive team, but some of these turnovers that we've seen here in the first quarter have just been silly and kind of careless. And the Phoenix Suns, just by virtue of winning game 1, cannot feel like, okay, we're just inherently better than the Lakers. You should have some confidence that you can win the series, but you're not going to just get up and put on your shoes to the Lakers and not beat a LeBron James-led team, especially.
I want to ask you a quick question. As this series goes on, the more combinations that you see Frank Vogel throwing out on the basketball court, does that give you room for concern that even he isn't sure what the most effective combination needs to be on the court for them to get past the Phoenix Suns? Or is this more of Frank Vogel kind of, playing chess with a team who obviously are, this is new to them, right? This is a new frontier. They've not been in the playoffs, right? We can safely say that. They look like a team that could have been in the playoffs last year. They obviously were robbed of that opportunity, but this year it's a hell of a first round matchup is basically to play a team who really should be a top 3 team in the Western Conference as being your first round matchup for what you work so hard for, which is to put yourself in a position where you have home field advantage, but it's against the defending champs.
Well, the one thing I'll say about Vogel as Booker drives in here with a nice reverse layup here, 30-24 as seems like we're about to close out the first quarter. Matthews misses a 3, maybe partially blocked by Campaign here. 30-24 end of the first here, and we'll go to a break after I make a quick statement. I think the biggest thing about the Lakers roster and what Vogel is doing is the fact that because of all the injuries, he's had to get everybody. So when he looks down that roster, we talked about it a little bit on the stream here. It's like, all right, well, you don't necessarily want to have to be going to, guys, 8, 9, and 10. But Vogel feels fine doing that if he really needed to, because he's had to trust those guys, when the Lakers were kind of tail spinning out of control here with LeBron and AD out. So THT is in the game. We just saw Morris in the game. Gasol's in the game. Like this lineup, Caruso's in the game. It's basically it's KCP, Caruso, Gasol, Morris, and I don't even think Kuzma was out there. Again, it's like none of the starters or none of the main guys are out there when you don't have LeBron, AD, or even Andre Drummond out there. So I think Vogel has a lot of trust in going to his bench if he needs to. And I don't think him going down the line is a sign of concern for him. Is more as like, all right, well, this is what I think we need right now. And he trusts those guys to kind of get it done. So we'll have more here after we take a quick break. Again, 30-24 Lakers lead out here at the end of the first quarter. We'll be right back.
Was there any poll stuff?
Interview. Yeah, and 11 Lakers played in that first quarter, a very, very lengthy first quarter, as we've alluded to. We'll go ahead and start this second quarter off with one of the Hot Mic poll questions. And thanks so much for joining us here on the Baseline Live coverage on Hot Mic, just talking about Lakers Suns Game 2. So a very easy and simple question. Basically, who will score more points in the second quarter? So, with the score being 30-24 as we begin, who do we think is actually going to take the second quarter lead in this game versus the Suns and Lakers? What do you got?
I think the Suns take the third quarter. I think they exercise their demons out of the first. And I'll even say this: I think they weathered the storm. If this is how the Los Angeles Lakers are going to use what they have as their means to impose their will on the Phoenix Suns, and you only are up by 6 points, it's not like it was the most dominating performance. It's actually pretty ugly basketball that was being played. And I don't know if you're going to rely on LeBron and AD to win that second quarter for you. I mean, they can, but I just think overall the Phoenix Suns, I think, have a gear in them. And I think that this may be the quarter in which they're going to make things very interesting for how we predict and look at the second half of this game.
Lakers start out here in the second quarter. Another foul drawn on this game. Looks like that's Crowder again. Gasol is out there. Anthony Davis is out there. Kuzma, Caruso. And I believe that was KCP. I have to kind of take another quick look back, or if it was THT, can't really see. But struggling here with the fouls, just being a little bit over aggressive. And Gasol, one of the game's greatest floppers and greatest actors, he's able to go ahead and
it's bad when DeAndre Ayton was looking at Crowder like, dude. I mean, he's probably saying he's probably speaking in the Caribbean. He's like, boom, boom.
Yeah, it was THT, not KCP. THT is out here right now, behind the back pass to nobody in particular. Ball goes out of bounds. 10:39 left here to go in the second quarter here. One of the things, though, I think I love about this Phoenix Suns team is that it really is that they fought hard, right? And they don't care that nobody necessarily believes in them. And I think now what we want to see with Booker on the bench is that these bench guys can kind of go ahead and give them some buckets. Ayton started off the quarter with them with a nice little dunk. Is this his time now here in the second quarter with Booker out to kind of be the lead guy offensively especially with Booker and Chris Paul hurting Booker on the bench? Do you look for Ayton now to really kind of take advantage of that offensively? Or do you think they need to kind of just go by committee, and get Johnson a couple shots here, Payne, and maybe even Chris Paul to look for his shot here a little bit as well?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question because I think if his responsibility is taking Anthony Davis, and like I said, he really should be more focused on making it harder for Anthony Davis to make shots. But if Ayton has his opportunities offensively, because look, a lot of responsibility from Anthony Davis is his ability to be versatile, and on those switches, he's going to have that responsibility of staying in front of some of the guards, which means that Ayton should have some mismatch advantages because he's the next tallest guy on the basketball court, right? Again, it comes down to positioning. I have more confidence in Ayton's positioning for the way that the Phoenix Suns play their offense than I would say how the Lakers position Andre Drummond and how the Lakers position Anthony Davis. The difference between those two is Anthony Davis knows how to get his own bucket, right? Andre Drummond doesn't. Ayton doesn't have that ability, but when you have quality guards that know how to get the ball to their bigs, all they got to do is get themselves underneath the basket, right? So if Davis is your best front court player being drawn all the way up to the three-point line because he's just that versatile and can guard the guards and doesn't want to come off the switches, then Ayton should be having a field day. It's an alley-oop day for him. All he has to do is get underneath the basket. You know what I'm saying? Pick and slide. Pick and cut. Get to the basket. And he will have a field day against the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yeah, I think Ayton can kind of live in the dunker spot too, even if he's not involved in direct action and pick and roll. I mean, if Paul or whoever runs a pick and roll action at the top and Ayton is kind of sinking down there on the baseline in the dunker spot, his man is probably still going to likely to come up there. And Chris Paul seems to be doing a good job of trying to get some dribble penetration in here and there they're going, still favoring. And actually, I think I've only seen him drive right so far in this game. It's making me wonder, what's going on here, as he missed a jumper a little bit a while ago as well, too. But I think that's an excellent point, too. It just has to be ready to receive the ball and ready to, make a play with it. Might have to do a fake or two as well, too, because Anthony Davis obviously one of the lead defenders out there, but he has to be aggressive, especially with Booker on the bench here and Chris Paul ailing. I think that's where they have to kind of rely and get some offense as Anthony Davis goes to the line here. 9:04 left, 31-26. One of the things, too, that we haven't really talked about, in this series and kind of even at throughout the course of the regular season when we've discussed the Lakers is the evolving role of Kyle Kuzma. And he really is just kind of a rotation player now, right? Like rookie season was what it was last year, kind of was what it was again too. Rookie season probably was his best, but he's really just had to kind of take a major step back, and as Chris Paul finds Ayton on a nice drive there. Ayton with the dunk, again, just kind of sitting in the lane. Chris Paul doing a great job going left this time, and getting into the lane. But talk a little bit about, your thoughts and impression of Kyle Kuzma as I don't know if we want to go so far as say high-level role player, but a role player nonetheless for what the Lakers want to do on both sides of basketball.
This is unfortunately the byproduct of when you have a defensive-minded head coach and the focus on making the team better defensively. When you take an offensively quality, maybe you can say gifted kid like in Kyle Kuzma, and you shift his priorities and his focus to be more defensive-minded. Listen, I'm not saying that this kid suddenly became a defensive specialist, but clearly he knows that he is going to take a step back on the amount of touches he's going to get. And more importantly, he's going to take a step back on where he fits in the totem pole as far as offensive priority, right? So where do you fit in with the Lakers team that's obviously going to be making a serious run for a championship? You got to be where the team is at, and Vogel believes that the team's key to doing that is being better defensively. And Kyle Kuzma has improved his ability to defend. Maybe at the detriment of us seeing, a budget. What do you call it? A budgeting star. Sorry, it sounds so stuffy, but he essentially could have been an offensive star in the NBA. Maybe on some other team he could clearly be like an all-star caliber type player. But for the Los Angeles Lakers, what they need from him right now is that when they put him out there on the floor, that depending on where he sits, if it's the second unit or whatever the case may be, his ability to stay in front of his man, be able to defend, decently, I think is going to be what stands out more than anything. In this series, you can make the argument they may need Kyle Kuzma scoring, right? If the Lakers struggle to score the basketball, and when I say that, I'm saying LeBron James and Anthony Davis are not, simpatico in their ability to score the basketball and just dominate, right? Who are the Lakers going to lean on? Wesley Matthews? Dennis Schroeder? You know what I'm saying? Like, I would think that it would be Kyle Kuzma would be the next best player who's going to be able to get you those 20-something points that might not come through LeBron James or Anthony Davis through the course of this series. That's just me.
Yeah, I like that take. In a lot of ways, I think I don't know what Kuzma is anymore, though. Why he's accepted his role is like, could he turn it on if he were to go somewhere else? I'm not really sure. I have to kind of look it up. Not really sure where his contract situation lies right now. I can't remember. I feel like there was this extension talk. I don't know if he did get the extension. Like, I think he did. At a reasonable amount, more than maybe he would have gotten, a year or two ago, so to speak. But it's really interesting. I don't really know who he is anymore, and if he can be this guy. I thought when LeBron went down and AD was already out, I expected Kuzma to kind of go nuts. I really did. And where he'd be this 20 point per game guy easily, maybe even if it was inefficiently. And that didn't happen. That didn't happen. He had flashes, he was able to do that, but shouldering the offensive load, I don't necessarily cards right now, and he's maybe his mindset is so shifted. He's not, he can't be that while being and wearing a Laker uniform. So he's going to get hot some nights, but his role really now is to kind of focus on the defensive side of the basketball. And he's not amazing at that any stretch of the imagination, but he knows that's his claim to fame here now, and to hit some open shots.
That's just going to keep him on the court.
Yeah,
that's what's going to keep him on the court, is that he's got to be a good, solid, player on the defensive side of the ball. It's interesting. We often talk about how LeBron James makes everybody around him better, right? Like, or maybe because he's such a great player that he gives a lot of guys who would be otherwise on the bench or probably living out their best life in the G League or whatever. He somehow figures out a way to give them a platform for them, to be elevated NBA players, right? Like players that, you know, are going to get a good contract if after the run with LeBron James ends, they may even win a chip. You send them, you know, they go elsewhere, and you know it kind of gets exposed. They were only as good playing next to LeBron, other than saying that they were playing. I mean, that's some of the rumors and some of the conversations that I think some people may actually have. That there's some players where if they go elsewhere, they can't stand on their own unless they're playing next to LeBron James. Yeah. I'm wondering, do you think that Kyle Kuzma is one of those dudes?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because, I mean, what way do you look at it? I mean, his best year was with Lonzo Ball, right? That's where he was really kind of going ham. And when LeBron came, he played well, but you know, it was really kind of when he was the surprise player, you know, for the Lakers. And yeah, I do wonder what his role will be if they do try to move him. If they don't ultimately end up winning a championship, I think he'd be the most attractive trade piece if the Lakers were not able to get it done this year. And LeBron's not gonna, and the Lakers not gonna rest on their laurels. They'll be trying to make moves. So Drummond obviously will be out of there, but Kuzma, as a guy who's under contract potentially, would be somebody that I think they'd be also trying to move as well too. Yeah, and then we'd be interested to see what he would do on another team in a different role without the LeBron factor one way or the other. Suns, we gotta talk about it here real quick, and we'll even kind of harken back to what you said earlier. Lakers guards not being able to hold a candle defensively to what Phoenix is doing as Schroeder pulls up for a jumper 37-34. Lakers with 6:30 left to go here in the second. Dribble penetration has been the key to this game, and really in the second quarter as Chris Paul is in the lane again, hits a floater. After they found Ayton on multiple dunks, they found Torrey Craig on a dunk as well a little while ago. How do we stop the bleeding? You know what I mean? The dribble penetration, because you have bigs. Drummond is in the game right now. Davis was in there a little bit a while ago, but they're all biting on the drives of these guards, and they're finding their bigs for easy dump offs. What's happening here? What's going on with the Lakers defense on the perimeter? Why are these guards getting into the lane like this?
I mean, they're getting into the lane because they're just not. They don't have the what I want to say. They don't have the defensive IQ to hang with veteran guards like Chris Paul. And remember, you know, he's enabling other guys like the Cameron Paynes. He's enabling these guys, you know, showing them this is what you can do to break the defense down. You know what I'm saying? This is how you could get past these guys. I think it's going to take somebody else, and I know it sounds kind of crazy. It may take maybe even LeBron James guarding Chris Paul, just for a couple of series. Sometimes you need somebody else to set the tone. It can't be just because Frank Vogel calls a timeout and gets up in front of Dennis Schroeder or gets up in front of Wesley Matthews or gets up in front of Alex Caruso and say, oh, you guys need to do this, that, and the third. They're not going to be able to relate to that. Where they'll be able to relate to it, especially in this real-time scenario, is your best player, whether it be LeBron or maybe even Anthony Davis, one of your best players has to get up and show you, even take a foul doing it, but you have got to get up in Chris Paul's grill. You have got to prevent him from making it easy to just dribble, drive, penetrate. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to show them something so that they understand you're not doing it. Here's how you do it. Because ultimately, if that doesn't occur, the Phoenix Suns are going to be feasting on the backcourt of the Los Angeles Lakers all series long. They will be feasting.
Well, that and the free throws have definitely kept them in this game as the Lakers, continue to lead in this game right now, 41-38. Drummond, I think he might already have 10 rebounds. This guy's been kind of, doing his thing on that side, which he kind of usually does, on a regular basis. Lakers doing a great job of trying to attack now. Hold on, that was a wild three from KCP, not even close. Lakers are doing a great job of trying to attack. Schroeder went to the rim a couple times here as Ayton went out for the aforementioned Saric. Monty Williams is like, that's enough of that. He brings Ayton right back into the game, and Saric goes to the bench as he saw the Lakers were starting to get really comfortable, even in their own attacks here, as Booker now misses a driving layup. Anthony Davis rebound. Schroeder wide open for three. and he cans that 44-38. Lakers 4:20 left to go, 4:25 left to go. Excuse me. But it does that kind of goes to again another point we were talking about the lack of interior depth for the Suns could be a problem. You know, if the Lakers really want to take advantage of their size and their bigs, because Ayton is prone to foul trouble. Number one. But when he's gone out of the game, they've just been like they recognize they cannot let guys like Saric and Crowder guard their bigs, and the Lakers are doing a much better job of attacking the paint when Ayton is not in the game, or if Ayton's on the other side of the floor, they're going straight to the rim on those guys too. So I think a great game plan. I mean, it's kind of obvious, but it's the right game plan for the Lakers here. You know, as again, you know, they did struggle with that here in a little bit in game one.
Yeah, something that I've kind of noticed so far is the Suns seem to be relying way too much on their backcourt making the plays for them. And there seems to be some hesitance in them just going in and getting to the basket, attacking and attacking. I've seen a couple of instances where DeAndre Ayton slides down into the paint between Paul or Booker. They get into the paint, and it looks like they're trying to draw the Lakers to collapsing on them so that they can get an open look for their bigs. I just honestly feel like they just need to go in and attack. Okay? Don't worry about getting the ball to Johnson and getting the ball to Ayton or those dudes. Get in there and attack and force the Lakers to defend. Because the Lakers, to me, are playing so aggressive that I think they're going to get the calls. But they take themselves out of getting those calls when they bail out the Lakers for not playing really sound defense, allowing them to get into the paint, and then realizing that they're not going to take a shot, but they're just going to dribble around until they think that they're, the Suns' bigs are going to make themselves available and open, And I just think that that's not a good game plan. I just think you have the advantage when you have Booker and Paul on there, and there's not a Laker backcourt player that can defend them at all. Get in there,
not at all.
Draw the fouls, and get on the free throw line, or get in there and take that shot. And by doing that, you actually do enable Ayton to be a more active offensive rebounder, which is what you're going to need, especially in this series. So, we're seeing Drummond basically abuse any and everyone except DeAndre Ayton, which is now going to force Monty Williams to be like, do I need to take Ayton off of Davis and put him on freaking Drummond, and then hope that Saric can just at least, think or maybe wish upon a star that Anthony Davis is going to kind of mentally take himself out of the games, which he sometimes do at times. He doesn't involve himself, impose himself in there because everybody else is getting theirs. I don't know.
8-0 run here for the Lakers, 49-38, as they've gone into the paint. Andre Drummond, a little while ago, got his double-double here in the first half. So we're going to take a quick break as the stream has taken a quick break here, and we'll be back here to close out the second half for Lakers versus Suns. Lakers looking a little bit more dominant here to close the end of the second quarter. We'll be right back. tweet, and we talked about this even on the show a little bit. The one thing though, for sure, is nobody's afraid of this Lakers team. Bless you again. So they look good here tonight. I don't know if this will maybe reestablish some fear around the league, or maybe even for the Suns specifically. But the way they close out the season, some of the comments that were made even about them, no one's afraid of them. And the conversation coming into the regular season is like, oh, it's over, it's a wrap, and Harrell and so forth and so forth. It's all of that. Like it hasn't really amounted to much. And I think that's something that the Phoenix Suns need to be able to hang their hat on. Like, you can't show the Lakers that you're afraid of them, because LeBron is like a piranha. Bless you again. He's like a piranha, bro. He smells blood in the water, and it's Rap City. So how did the Phoenix Suns establish a little bit more confidence in themselves outside of what they were able to do, obviously, in Game 1, but with this Lakers team kind of being more physical and punishing them? I wouldn't say they're getting the benefit of the call. They're just being more aggressive, and as a result, putting some of the Suns in some foul trouble, forcing Monty Williams to scramble a little bit here when it comes to the front court.
Phoenix Suns need to just play their game. I think we just saw this from tip. The Phoenix Suns are just allowing the Los Angeles Lakers to impose their will way too much. Like, excuse me. If you're the Phoenix Suns, you work so hard to position yourself to be a top-seeded team. There's some teams that you can look at them and say, yeah, as good as they look, they're not going to probably wind up getting past, the first round, right? Or they're going to struggle. I think we said that last year with a couple of teams who, after we had established the seedings, we said, hey, if these guys are supposed to have an on switch, we ain't figured it out yet. Like, they haven't figured it out yet. We don't know what they're trying to do. And the clock is ticking on them. And you don't get the sense of that with the Phoenix Suns, but it could happen very quickly for them, because it's not about the fact that you're saying you don't have confidence that they can be a good basketball team and they should, position themselves to make a serious run here. It's about recognizing the kind of personnel that you have and the latitude that you're giving yourself in order to be able to think in that kind of context. So what I mean by that is, if you look at this roster and you look at even how Monty Williams is coaching this team, he isn't looking up and down this lineup saying, oh, I could put this guy in here and, he can help maybe replicate what's going on, or, if I could put my bench in there, they're going to probably give me a spark. Monty Williams ain't thinking like that. He knows who got him to where he is right now, right? And for the most part, those guys have been healthy, and they've improved, and they've gotten better, and they made a serious run to be the number 2 seed. They need to play their game. They play their game. Monty Williams has confidence in the guys that he's putting in to execute what he wants to have executed. You know what I'm saying? But if they worry too much about what the Lakers are trying to do to them, now they are basically pinned against the wall. And now you're forcing Monty Williams to draw deep into a roster that is marginalized, right? They're not deep, right? They've got some good players, but they won't be good enough if you're asking them to do things that they're just not capable of doing. We're never capable of doing through the course of the regular season. So that to me is first and foremost. Phoenix Suns need to get back to what makes them, why we talked about them the whole regular season, why we felt excited about them. Because nothing about even parts of game, we saw it in glimpses in Game 1, but we didn't see it throughout the course of a game. And we're not even seeing it at all in Game 2. Forget the score and the fact that they're losing. It's just the way that they're even executing right now. If you want to call it because of Chris Paul being injured, I guess so, maybe. But you can make the argument Devin Booker's not even aggressive in this game, right? It's like they're still searching for something. And that's never the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, this game has a weird flow, because when I was examining the box scores from Game 1, 99-90, you'd figure, all right, well, that's not a high-scoring game in today's NBA. Figure there would have been a lot of rebounds and stuff like that to be had. The Lakers only had 33 total rebounds, in that entire game. So far here, they have 27 rebounds, and we're not even at halftime, with 7 of those rebounds coming off on the offensive side. Obviously, Andre Drummond doing what he does there. So again, really, really strange game flow, as the pace is a little bit faster than what we saw in game one. But there's more rebounding opportunities, so forth here. And again, like, no, don't know if I quite understand. Looking at the box score, how that makes sense to me. They have 27 rebounds already, and they had 33 all of game one on the Lakers side. So something very, very strange going on there. But conversely, the Suns only 19 rebounds here, as we close roughly with 45 seconds left to go here. They have not really been able to attack the glass. Only 1 offensive rebound. While Ayton has played a really good game, basically being in the lane and being in the dunker spot, 7 of 7 from the floor here, and had a nice kick out to Bridges a little while ago. They've got to figure out a way to get the Lakers off the glass, and also for them to get some more touches offensively. They're basically getting 1 shot and they're up out of here. Lakers really securing the rebounds on this side as well too. One thing I want to talk about before we close the half here is, I just touched on Bridges. He's had a hell of a job having to just guard LeBron, so he's kind of sold out, not really, let's say, searching for his offense like holistically, so to speak, as LeBron misses a 3. Payne with the rebound here as we're coming close here in the first half. I'm just going to give you Payne with the drive, misses a scoop shot, 53-47 as the Lakers lead here going into halftime. But what do you think Bridges can do, or Monty Williams is doing the right thing here by just having Bridges say, hey, lock up LeBron, pick your shots, pick your spots, don't necessarily worrying about having to be, an offensive powerhouse for us on the other side of the basketball. What do you think about Bridges and his contribution and what he can do for the rest of the series?
Well, I guess it depends on what kind of matchup or pairing, the Suns want to establish, right? Like, listen, can Bridges take LeBron James off the drill? No, but force LeBron James to step up and defend on the switch. Work a little 2-man game between him and Devin Booker. If the whole idea is that the Lakers have no confidence that Mikal Bridges is going to shoot the ball, then they're going to sell out, right? But you got to see, part of the reason why the Lakers are as strong a basketball team is if you can figure out a way to keep your best players from having to expend as much energy on one side of the basketball court, they win that matchup. So, LeBron James not really expending a whole lot of energy defensively, I think, is to the detriment of the Phoenix Suns. Because part of the reason why the Phoenix Suns are as good a basketball team is because all of their players are active. All of them are engaged. Yeah. All of them are working, even the best defensive players on the opposition. So if LeBron James is not doing anything on the defensive side of the ball, you're actually setting up LeBron James to really explode on you offensively. So they're gonna have to figure this out, but you cannot get away with not putting Bridges in a position to force LeBron to have to step up and defend, whether it's, coming off of a switch or running him all around the damn court, just for the sake of doing it. But LeBron looks like he's pretty relaxed right now. Doesn't look like he's even sweating right now, which tells you how inactive Bridges is on the offensive side of the ball with the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, he's been more or less being used as a spot-up guy. He's taken 5 shots, 4 of them have been threes. So he's not really looking, and he does that. I'm not saying he's not acting out of his kind of ordinary, but there might be a way to maybe get him some different actions to make LeBron work specifically. Relatively okay half for LeBron. 10, 4, and 1, had 2 steals. 4 of 7 from the floor, but not extremely dominant. Anthony Davis, decent half, too, more than decent, on his way to a quote-unquote triple-double, 10, 6, and 4 here with a block. But not the dominating performance that I think we were expecting out of both of those guys, with definitely them not wanting to go down
0-2. Who dominated for the Lakers in that first half, Sean?
Well, I mean, statistically, Schroeder, when he kept getting to the line, so he finishes the half with 16, and obviously the work that Andre Drummond did on the glass, with his double-double, 11 and 10. So a balanced effort in some ways, at least from the starters, a little bit here from the Lakers. KCP 0 for 4 from 3, 0 for 4 from the floor altogether. But again, not LeBron and AD just going crazy ham on the Phoenix Suns, and the Lakers here, take the lead into halftime.
But that should also
I don't know if that's good or bad.
But that should also tell you as well too, Shaw, that the Phoenix Suns are not working nearly as hard enough. If you're telling me that Dennis Schroeder is going to be able to score his points, but you tell me he's scoring his points from the line, it's because of either silly fouls or they're not working.
No, he's getting to the basket. He's getting to the lane. So he's taking 2 free throws.
No, absolutely. But I'm just saying, it's just speaking to what the Phoenix Suns is supposed to be their strength. They're not doing it. They're not doing it at all. Like they did in Game 1. Even with with a half whole Chris Paul, Devin Booker's dominating performance. All of that stuff. It's meaningless. You know what I'm saying? Going into Game 2, if we're not even talking about the Phoenix Suns backcourt and how they're faring against the Los Angeles Lakers. They're not taking advantage of the ability of them, and they're blowing past the Lakers backcourt. It's not like we're not watching this game and saying they're getting in there. They're in the paint. They're living in there, but they're either not taking shots, they're not getting on the free throw line, or they're turning the ball over, which tells me there's a lot of indecisiveness going on, or they're waiting around trying to get an easier shot, which I just think is just asinine. If you're in there, go and take the shot. Just do it.
The Suns, they did luckily only had 2 turnovers in that second quarter compared to the 7 that they had in the first quarter. So took care of the ball a little bit, had a nice little run midway through the quarter where they were kind of getting in the lane ad nauseum. Maybe the Lakers call a timeout, but the Lakers go conversely and attack them on the other side, as I alluded to. Schroeder really getting downhill on this Phoenix team, especially when Ayton was out of the game, and just kind of running on opposite side of action, as Ayton has to pay attention if he's guarding Davis specifically, and he has to pay attention if he's guarding Drummond to try to keep Drummond off the glass. So us here, we know we like to keep it short here on the HotMic platform. We don't like to belabor the issue. The Lakers have the lead here going into the second half. Final predictions here before we sign off here on our HotMic stream here of Lakers and Suns, bro. Like, what do you think's going to happen in the second half? And, just overall, who you think's going to win the second game?
Lakers win game 2. I think LeBron James and Anthony Davis, they'll do just enough. I'm sure the Phoenix Suns are gonna fight hard. Devin Booker's not going to stay quiet for long, but when it's all said and done, you're going to probably get questions like, oh, do you come back down to earth, this, that, and the third? Look, man, this is just the Lakers, man. They are a good defensive basketball team. Yeah. They're gonna make sure that they reflect that if they see that the Phoenix Suns still haven't figured out how to be effective offensively against them. And I think that's going to be to the Phoenix Suns' detriment. So all of that good work from Game 1 gets thrown away because they don't, step up in the second half in Game 2, and the Lakers hold on and win.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, not just by virtue of what we've seen in terms of game flow here. I just think everybody thought the Lakers would bounce back one way or another. Phoenix doesn't really seem to have the answer, and Chris Paul not right, and Booker, I don't want to say he's timid. I mean, he's taking shots. A lot of people look at the field goal percentage. He's 3 of 8. But he's also 6 of 6 from the free throw line. So he's definitely trying to look for his offense and trying to help out here a little bit too. But it just looks like the Lakers are looking to punish the Suns inside here a little bit. I think Monty Williams has got to figure out a way to help them on the glass and try to keep the Lakers off the glass and to negate some of their bigs. It would be interesting. I'd have to ask one of our more Phoenix faithful to kind of see maybe the different defenses that Monty Williams may switch up. But I don't necessarily trust the Lakers 3-point shooting. So could you kind of hold up a little bit and dare those guys to shoot threes, maybe play a little bit of zone and try to pack it in to try to ensure you can get more rebounds and keep the Lakers off the glass. We should see if Monty Williams goes to that adjustment because, like I said, Sarge isn't giving them anything. Looks like Kaminsky's out of the rotation here. So looks like it should be a Lakers win going into this in closing of Game 2. But ultimately, hey, we'll still be watching even though we're not broadcasting. So I want to thank everybody for joining us here on the HotMic stream. We'll see where we're at. We like to kind of keep it light. Just take a look at the schedules. We never know which one to do. We like to pick games that we think are going to be interesting. So far, this one is a good first half. Promise you, we probably will not be doing any Celtics games because they look like they're about to get just routed and swept out of the playoffs here. So we'll stay away.
That's cold, man. That's just damn cold.
But hey, the Heat are going to have to show us something here as well too. So we'll talk with the HotMic folks. We'll talk amongst ourselves, and we'll be back with you next time. Stay tuned to us here on the Baseline. Make sure you follow us at NBA Baseline on Twitter, at Shaw Sports NBA, and my man, the homie, the brother, at GameFace Lee on Twitter as well too. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, folks. We'll catch up with you next time.